First and foremost, giving all honor and glory and praises to our great, good, and terrible God, Yahweh, and to his most humble servant, Yahweh Ben Yahweh, the one who revealed the Dagon name. This video was created for one purpose, and that is for the lifting up of the Son by sharing my Numinous experiences with you. This is the first Numinous experience that I ever had. At the time, I did not know that it was a Numinous experience because I had never heard of that word at that time. I was working at the Marriott Marquis downtown Atlanta. There was a young lady that worked with me who I later came to know as Naomi Israel. She had some of Yahweh Ben Yahweh's books laid out. At the time, I did not know who he was. She had one book. It was Yahweh Magazine. It had a picture of Yahweh Ben Yahweh standing out there on the cover, just looking wonderful, full of glory. You know, I made a comment to her. I said, man, you know, that's a real powerful looking brother. You know, we talked for a moment, and then she just asked me something. She said, you know, what motivates you? And for some reason, out of the blue, I said this. I do not know why. I had never said this before. I said, I'm self-motivated. When I said that, a big smile appeared upon her face. I did not know why. It was only later on that I realized at that moment in time, Yahweh Ben Yahweh was teaching a class on being self-motivated. So, you know, that was a little numinous experience for her. Well, she asked me if I wanted to support her and, you know, purchase some of the books. So I told her, I said, well, you know, yeah, I'll get one from you. And I decided that I would get the Yahweh Magazine book. I asked her how much did it cost. She told me it was $10. So I said, yeah, I'll get that one. And she tried to also sell me a yellow book, which I later, you know, came to know as Our True History. And I told her, well, I can only afford to get one book right now. She says, well, if you can only afford to get one book, you ought to get this book. And so I asked her how much was the price of that book, and she told me it was $5. Now, to me, that was kind of odd, because usually when someone tries to sell you something, they try to sell you the most expensive item. So my mindset being into picture pages, and really not into a book that had a whole bunch of words, which is what the yellow book had, I decided I'll get both of them. Well, when I left work that day, I got on the train and I forgot both of my books. I had put them up and I forgot them. I said, well, tomorrow when I get to work, I'll just retrieve them from where I left them. The next day I got to work and the books were gone. Well, I said to myself, I said, well, I'm just going to make up a lie. I'm going to tell her that I read the books and, you know, I found them to be interesting. You know, I found some positive things in it, you know, blasey, blasey, blasey. Well, that evening when I left, I was headed home and I walked out the back of the Marriott Marquis door and I was headed to the left to get on the train. And all of a sudden I just stopped and I went to the right. I said, let me go down the street. I'm going to hang out with this gentleman that I work with. Speak with him for a while. I got down to his house. We sat down at his table. We sat and talked for maybe about 15, maybe 20 minutes at this table. And I decided that it was time for me to go. And when I stood up, lo and behold, there was my yellow book. It was sitting at the table right next to me the whole time. And I said, oh man, you know, hey, that's my book. You know, man, you know, where'd you get it from? And, you know, he told me where he found it at work. And he mentioned to me, he says, well, you know, he said, I don't know, you might not want to read that book. That book seems a little, you know, a little racist. And when I was at work the day before trying to buy a book, a sister, you know, had said some negative things about Yahweh Ben Yahweh. So I told him, I said, well, you know, that's okay. I'll be okay. And, you know, I'm not worried about it. So I took the book and I went on down the street, stopped by my grandmother's house for a moment. And I opened up the book and I decided to, read the first page, see what it was all about. As I began to read the book, it quickly got to the meat of the subject. Have you heard people say that God, Yahweh, is black? Have you heard people say that Jesus is black? Have you heard people say that the prophets were all black? As I read on, it gave me a description of God and told me that it could be found in Daniel chapter 7, verse 9. I read it. I quickly asked my uncle for his Bible. He gave me his Bible. I opened it up, went to Daniel 7 and 9, and what was in the book was in the Bible. My heart started to beat. As I continued to read on, he gave me a second scripture, and this was in Revelations chapter 1, 13 and 14, giving me a description of the Son of God. And in the midst of the 7 candlesticks, one like unto the Son of Man, letting you know what Jesus, who is referred to as the Son of Man, looks like. And I continued to read on, and once again, my heart started to beat a little bit faster. I grabbed my Bible again, my uncle's Bible, and went to that verse, and sure enough, it was in there. I quickly closed the book, put it in a paper bag, and put it in the back of my pants, because this time I would not lose this book again. I went home, stayed up to 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning reading that book. When I woke back up the next day, maybe about 9 or 10 o'clock, I finished reading it. That was my first Numinous experience. Yahweh guided my path to retrieve my yellow book, and also me having a Numinous experience with Naomi when I said that I was self-motivated, words that had never come out of my mouth in my life. I share this with you, all for the uplifting of the Son, Yahweh, Beth Nun Sophie, Yahweh. My brothers and sisters, I'm sure that you all have Numinous experiences, and I hope that you choose to share some of them with us. Praise Yahweh, praise Yahweh, Beth Nun Sophie, Yahweh. Shalom Aleichem.